In the year 1769, the ancient heart of Ethiopia began to beat out of rhythm. The Solomonic crown, once a symbol of divine order, now sat crooked, its luster dulled by blood and betrayal. Emperors still ruled from their thrones in Gondar, but their scepters carried no weight. Behind velvet curtains, Ras Mikael made his move. A warlord in title, a king in all but name. In one swift stroke, he murdered Emperor Aishaw I, staining the palace with a message. The age of emperors was over. The Zemene Mesafint, the era of princes, had begun. Power fractured like broken glass. Regional lords rose from the shadows, each carving out their domain. Ras of Tigray, lords of Shoa, Wolo, Bagemder, all armed, all ambitious. In the highlands, smoke curled above burned villages. Armies marched not in unity, but against each other. Alliances were made with gold and broken with blades. Emperors were crowned and discarded like garments. Some ruled mere months, others never left their prison palaces. They were shadows of a royal past, figureheads under the thumbs of Ras, who feasted while peasants starved. Ethiopia did not fall, it splintered, and in every darkened corner, one question echoed: who will restore the crown, and at what cost? He entered the royal court not as a servant, but as a storm. Ras Mikael, Lord of Tigray, master of intrigue. In a world where emperors knelt to warlords, Mikael stood taller than them all. With words like daggers and armies like shadows, he seized power, not by birthright, but by cold ambition. In 1769, he struck with unspeakable audacity, murdering Emperor Aishaw I. Within the very walls of the palace, he installed a puppet emperor and watched the empire bow. Was he a savior, ending a weak ruler's chaos, or a tyrant who traded kings like coins? Under Mikael's rule, Gondar became a stage of whispers and knives. Nobles feared his gaze, generals pledged loyalty with trembling hands, but power, like fire, consumes all who touch it too long. Soon, the lords who once feared Mikael began to unite. His enemies circled like wolves, ambushes, betrayals, retreats, and then silence. Mikael's influence burned out like a dying candle. The man who crowned emperors was now a footnote in their rise and fall. Yet his legacy lived on. He opened the gates to a new age where Ras ruled like emperors and emperors died forgotten. Mikael asked no permission. He rewrote the rules, but his rise left behind a chilling question. If a Ras could command the crown, who else might claim the throne? After Ras Mikael's fall, there was no peace. Instead, chaos spread like wildfire. Ethiopia shattered into a dozen kingdoms in all but name: Wolo, Gojam, Bagemder, Tigray, Shoa. Each ruled by a Ras, each drunk on power. The Solomonic emperor, a figurehead locked in Gondar's fading halls, wearing a crown but wielding no sword. Across the highlands, warlords turned the land into a chessboard of ambition. 1 month, they were allies. The next, sworn enemies. Brother against brother, church against church. Fortresses rose atop misty peaks. Cannons echoed through sacred valleys, and ancient monasteries became battlegrounds. Even religion bent to politics. Priests anointed warlords as chosen saviors. The Ark of the Covenant was paraded to gain divine favor, and yet no side could conquer all. Peace was always promised, but never delivered. Every treaty was a trap, every alliance a lie. Villages burned for loyalties they never chose. Fields lay barren, roads crumbled. Ethiopia, the once mighty kingdom, was bleeding. But within the ashes, hope stirred. In the shadows of fractured rule, whispers began to grow. Where is the true emperor? When will the lion rise again? From the mountains, a figure would soon rise to unite them. But first, there would be more blood. Gondar, the once shining capital of emperors, now stood as a ghost of itself. Its grand castles, carved from stone and glory, echoed with silence. Inside sat an emperor, but not a ruler, a puppet draped in gold. His word meant nothing. His court, a theater of shadows. Outside those walls, real power shifted with the wind, passed from Ras to Ras, sword to sword. One day, Ras Ali ruled from Debre Tabor. The next, Ras Wube from Tigray marched on the north. Then came Dejazmach Kasa, a name barely whispered, yet destined to shake the world. The people watched, waited, suffered. Every region fought for dominance. Every noble saw himself a king. And the clergy? Divided. Some priests clung to ancient rites. Others bent the cross toward power. Gondar wept. Once the city of saints and scribes, now a pawn in a war of egos. Schools closed, churches burned. Scrolls were lost to fire, to greed, to time. Yet even in ruin, Ethiopia remembered. The stories of Solomon still echoed in broken halls. The line was not broken, only dormant. And while the nobles warred, far from Gondar's crumbling walls, a warrior was rising, shaped by battle, scarred by betrayal, not born in the palace, but destined for the throne. Who was he? And could he restore the lion's roar? In the chaos of shattered crowns and broken oaths, a lone lion stirred in the north. His name? Kasa Hailu. Not born of nobility, not raised in luxury. He came from hardship, from betrayal, famine, and exile. His youth was marked by the sound of muskets and the scent of scorched earth. He watched the races squabble over scraps of empire, watched the people bleed, starve, fade, and he swore, "I will not die a servant to tyrants. I will not kneel to chaos." Kasa gathered followers, farmers, outlaws, patriots. He didn't rule, he inspired. With every victory, his legend grew. Dejazmach Kasa, they called him now. The common man's general, the people's sword. Ras Ali, the power in Gondar, saw him as a nuisance, but that nuisance became a storm. In 1853, at the Battle of Aishaw, Kasa faced Ras Ali's army, outnumbered, surrounded, but Kasa fought like a lion cornered. When the smoke cleared, Ras Ali fled, and the empire trembled. Was this the end of Zemene Mesafint, or the birth of something darker? In the ruins of a shattered kingdom, one man now stood above all, but with power came a heavier crown, and the blood he'd spilled would soon pale to the fire he would unleash. In 1855, beneath the ancient sky of Deraske Mariam, a man knelt not as a warlord, but as a king reborn. Kasa Hailu became Emperor Tewodros II, a name chosen not by birth, but by fire. He claimed descent from Solomon himself. But Tewodros did not inherit a throne. He seized it with bloodied hands and a blazing vision. Ethiopia would rise again, united, strong, defiant. No more puppet emperors, no more Ras tyranny. The age of princes was over. The lion wore the crown now. He built roads. He crafted cannon. He summoned foreign craftsmen. He dreamed of a modern Ethiopia. But dreams have shadows. Tewodros's hand grew heavier, his justice absolute. Those who opposed him, nobles, monks, even his own men, faced prison or worse. The emperor who rose from the people now ruled them with an iron will. Did power change the man? Or did the crown simply reveal the storm within? Across the provinces, the old powers stirred again. The age of princes was not dead. It had only bled. Tewodros would face not only rebels, but foreign empires. By 1868, the dream of Emperor Tewodros II stood on a knife's edge. His enemies had not only gathered within, but now came from across oceans. He had written to Queen Victoria seeking alliance, seeking respect. But silence answered him. Enraged, he imprisoned British diplomats, a desperate act or a defiant warning to the world. England did not stay silent. They sent an army, 13,000 troops across deserts and mountains with elephants, artillery, engineers. A full-scale invasion to free a few men and break an emperor. Tewodros fortified his mountain stronghold, Magdala. There, atop the mist-covered cliffs, he waited for battle or fate. The British ascended, and the mountain thundered with gunfire. The walls fell, the palace burned, but they would not take him. Tewodros, ever the lion, turned his pistol inward. A single shot and silence. He died by his own hand, not theirs. In that act, he denied his enemies their triumph and sealed his place in Ethiopian legend. But what they took was treasure, memory, history. The British looted Magdala, sacred books, crowns, relics carried away like spoils. Ethiopia had lost a king, but it had gained something greater, the fire of unity. The age of princes was finished. A new age would rise, but at what cost? Tewodros was gone, but his death did not bring peace. The lion had fallen, and in the vacuum, the jackals crept back in. The highlands fractured once more. Ambition stirred in every valley. Ras Kasai in Tigray, Ras Menelik in Shewa. Kings in all but name, all claiming the throne, left cold atop Magdala. The empire was no longer ruled by law, but by rifles, oaths, and betrayal. Alliances were made, then broken. 1 month, allies. The next, enemies. Warlords signed pacts in the morning and spilled blood by nightfall. In the markets of Gondar, whispers returned, "When will the emperor return?" But emperors were now ghosts. The churches remained, yes, but priests prayed under fire. Bandits roamed roads once sacred. Ancient manuscripts stolen, monasteries burned. Ethiopia's soul bled slowly, not from conquest, but from within. Men rose and fell, each chasing the crown, but none with the power to unite the broken realm. Yet, in the far north, one man gathered steel and silence, a former ally of Tewodros, hardened by war and patient. Would he be the one, or just another shadow in the long night? The era of princes dragged on, but in the distance, thunder stirred once more. In the twilight of a fractured empire, warlords ruled like kings, each guarding their fiefdom, each vying for power. But from the highlands of Kwara, a new force was rising. His name was Kasa Hailu, the son of a minor noble born of humble beginnings, but forged in fire. He was no courtly prince. He was a warrior, hardened in battle, revered by his men. First, he fought the invaders. Then, he turned inward, challenging the chaos within Ethiopia itself. In the late 1840s, Kasa swept across Gojam and Bagemda, crushing rival chiefs in a storm of steel and resolve. One by one, the warlords fell. The land trembled beneath his march, but one final shadow remained, Ras Ali II, the Yeju regent, the last great prince of the crumbling Zemene Mesafint, the era of princes. Then came June 29, 1853. Aishaw, a sun-blasted plain in eastern Gojam. Kasa's forces stood ready, disciplined, determined. Opposite them, Ras Ali's cavalry and musketeers loomed, fighting not just for power, but for an entire era. The air cracked with musket fire. Horses thundered. Smoke curled into the sky as Kasa led a fierce charge. His banner slicing through dust and flame. His warriors surged forward, fearless. The battle turned. Ras Ali's lines crumbled. In a blur of chaos, the regent fled, his ambitions shattered, his legacy undone. Aishaw had fallen, and with it, the curtain closed on a century of fragmentation. That night, as the sun dipped behind the Gojam hills, Ethiopia stood still. For the first time in generations, one man held the reins of destiny. Kasa Haile would soon be crowned Emperor Tewodros II. The age of princes had ended. A new empire was rising. The year is 1855. Ethiopia, long torn by warlords and fractured realms, stands on the edge of transformation. At its center, one man has risen above them all, Kasa Haile, warrior of Kwara, breaker of princes. He has defeated the mighty Ras of Semyon, outmaneuvered Ras Ali, and crushed every rival who dared to claim the crown. Now, only one step remains. On February 11th, within the sacred walls of Daraska Mariam Church, the flicker of candlelight dances across ancient stone. Silence reigns. Then, Abuna Salama, head of the Ethiopian church, steps forward. In a moment drenched in history and prophecy, he lowers the imperial crown upon Kasa's head. He rises, not as a noble, not as a general, but as Emperor Tewodros II, a name chosen not by accident, but by destiny. It echoes with ancient power. Tewodros, the prophesied unifier, the one to restore the lost glory of Ethiopia. Across the highlands, banners change. The warlords bow. The era of princes, Zemene Mesafint, is no more. But Tewodros does not sit idle on his throne. He begins to rebuild, not in ceremony, but in steel and fire. He modernizes his army, centralizes power, and dreams of a nation reborn. For the first time in over a century, Ethiopia begins to move as one. The lion throne, once symbolic, now commands. But ahead lies no easy peace. Enemies will rise. Foreign powers will interfere. Rebellion will test the emperor's will. Yet in this moment, this dawn, Ethiopia stands united, proud, and burning with purpose. Tewodros's reign has begun, and the fire of empire has been reignited.